another Doctor Who book reviews. Today I'm going to be taking up the first of 5 releases from the brand new Penguin Target novel collection, which is incredibly exciting. It's something of which we've been sort of wanting for absolutely years. We all knew it would happen at some point because classic Doctor Who has always got this treatment, and now we've finally got to the new series being over 10 years old. It kind of makes sense to start sort of novelising these stories. So today I'm going to be kicking off with the Target novel of Rose, written by Russel T Davies. I'm not going to be going in chronological order, so I'm not going to be reviewing the City of Death first, because not going to lie, as much as I like the City of Death, as much as a wonderful story it is, I felt that I wanted to go into new series Doctor Who first, because these are sort of the main attractions for this line, because it's new series Doctor Who novelised into the Target novel format. It's incredibly exciting, and for me it's nostalgic, because this was when I started watching Doctor Who, sort of the year after this story was released. So, you know, it's kind of like my own childhood coming back. I was going to say to haunt me then, that made it sound like I had an incredibly grim childhood, but you know, it's sort of my childhood coming back to me in some nice memories. So I've decided to do all these book reviews as individual book reviews, unlike some other people who have actually reviewed them all together, because they are quite small, to be honest. I think that this one is only 200 pages or something like that, along with the others. That's one of the main things about the Target novels. They are pretty small, sort of. They're not exactly as in-depth as you would imagine from a normal sort of Doctor Who book if it wasn't an actual TV story, but I've wanted to review them more separately, partly because it gives me more time to talk about each book and my opinions and how I feel that it's been presented from sort of the TV visual counterpart to that. Exams coming up soon, and kind of reviewing these all individually, it means that I can sort of go away for a little bit and do a bit more revision and kind of still put out videos for you guys. So, you know, my face is still on your screens every week, as I'm sure you'll all be incredibly happy about that. But yeah, today I'm going to be kicking off, as I say, with Rose, written by Russel T Davies. This is currently available, as you probably all know, because it's literally been cluttering my social media newsfeed now for the past 2 weeks. It is available on many different places, as per usual for Doctor Who books. I do believe Forbidden Planet will have some, probably signed actually, as well as your normal Doctor Who related book retailers. It is also online. I do believe the Penguin will probably be selling it directly, and you can also get it in multiple different editions on Amazon as well. Starting off, we've got the Kindle edition for £4.99. To get the paperback edition, which is this one, as you can see, it's made of paper and it is very nice. And to be honest, why would you not want this? This is one of the main reasons why this line is exciting, because it's in the lovely sort of retro-y style from the Helios sort of illustrations from many years ago. So yeah, but buy the physical edition, it's nice. And honestly, sort of, even though books are nice to have over the digital versions, I think that this is an exception where no matter what, this line is just beautiful to have in real. It's just so small and nice, and it can go along with all the other classic ones. But yeah, the paperback one is £5.24 currently on Amazon. However, the normal recommended retail is £6.99, so no doubt you'll find it in stores for that. Then you can also get the audio CD version as well, or audiobook version, whatever you prefer to call them. That is in fact read by Camille Coduri, and it is coming out in June 2018 this year. So if you're a fan of audiobooks, I recommend checking that out, to be honest. It will be interesting to see how Camille Coduri has presented the different characters throughout this story. So yeah, many different places that you can in fact buy this from. Like many books where they say don't judge them by the cover, very much these ones are a little bit of an exception. We'll just go into that now. I'm going to take a look at this book in a little bit of a product review style of format first, before getting onto the actual story itself.
Very nice actually, and quite impressive and rather retro looking. So as you can see at the very top, we get the rather nice classic Doctor Who logo in the shiny embossed font, which I do believe is the same as the reprints from the classic Target range that were released a few years ago. We get the Target logo, Rose, and then Russel T Davies, the person who's actually written this book. And then we get a rather nice art piece. This has been done by Anthony Dry. And as you can see, it's really nice, it's been inspired by the classic Target books. So we get the Ninth Doctor there, Rose, and then 2 Autons, and this rather odd sort of pixelated, almost cartoon design there. And the really nice thing with this is it's actually been made to kind of look a little bit incorrect. As you can see, Rose is quite obviously from series 2 with sort of the more straightened hair, which is something that was almost a theme of the older Target books. For example, here's the Web of Fear one, and the Yetis never had massive beams that came out of their eyes, and I do believe that that's meant to be, well, that's a spider's web as opposed to the actual Web of Fear. So yeah, it is a rather unusual book. Then we also have this design here, almost like a little bit similar, as you can see there, almost getting those colours in the background, giving it almost like a sort of splash watercolour pattern, and then we get the fire design at the bottom there, almost similar to that of the Doctor Who and the Daleks book that was one of the original prints, I do believe, from the original run. But yeah, I do really like the way that's been done. It would have almost been nice to have a few of those illustrations in there like the old books used to have, just trying to find one that I've skipped past. Now there's one with Barbara and Susan looking rather concerned. It might have been nice to have a few of those in within these, just to sort of keep up that theme, but there isn't actually any on the inside. I'll get onto that in a sec. Then on the spine we get Doctor Who, Russel T Davies, Rose, and then BBC Books at the bottom. Slightly annoying thing is, it does seem to be a little bit inconsistent. consistent, as you can see, just partnering with some of the other books there. Sort of the logo seems to be on the top for some of them and then a little bit down for the others, just like comparing to the other releases that have came out. Those ones seem to be fairly consistent. In fact, it seems to be Rose, it's just unusually off. And then taking a look at the back, we get "Nice to meet you, Rose, run to your life," of course a quote from the Ninth Doctor, then a close-up image of Christopher Eccleston once again. A little bit of write-up about the story. If you would like to read that, you can pause now. And then, of course, we also get a little bit of information about the episode at the bottom, such as it was broadcast on the 26th of March 2005, and that also says the casting at the bottom there, featuring the Ninth Doctor, played by Christopher Eccleston, with his companion Rose Tyler, and some complete information on the bottom. Doctor Who Rose on the front there, and then we get a list of all of the chapters. And taking a look on the inside, the text is fairly average in size. I would say it's probably your average format, maybe a little bit smaller. It's only 200 pages long anyway, so it won't take that long to read whatsoever. So yeah, overall, the actual creativity of this book, I really do like the design. I think that Anthony Dry's inspiration for these has been really nicely taken from the original Target novels, such as the ones from Chris Helios, or the Andrew Skeletor ones as well. So yeah, I think that these really nicely fit together, but of course it does just need a little bit of aging to make it look like the original Target novels, but it still nicely fits in with others in the collection.
So now taking a look at the actual story itself, I'm sort of going to cover one of the main questions that I've been wondering myself for many, many years. What is the point in these releases and why do they exist? We've got the visual versions, why do we need anything more than that? Why do we need a written version of the story that will just inevitably take longer to read, considering the episodes themselves are only 45 minutes long? Well, the answer to that is basically these give a little bit more of an in-depth development of that story. They allow for new scenes to be applied, such as in Rose we get lots of additional little references and many additional scenes as well that develop it a little bit more for Doctor Who these days. So just to sort of name an example that is rather exciting, Jodie Whittaker is referenced within Rose. In fact, when Clive is going through his shed and sort of showing Rose all the different pictures of the Doctor whilst he's saying he is sort of a myth woven throughout history and all that, and it's all very dramatic, and he in fact shows some images and some examples of Doctors throughout the eras, including the classic Doctors. A woman with blonde hair with giant blue trousers and yellow braces, and then all of a sudden you get sort of that universe of Doctor Who all intertwined together, and it is a rather unusual thing to feel because it's sort of that 2005 story, however brought up to date to Doctor Who these days. And I think that is the main reason why these exist. It kind of gives them a little bit more development within the canon of Doctor Who, but at the same time, it's kind of a little bit of a tradition, I feel. As I say, classic Doctor Who for years has had that idea of the Target novels and bringing Doctor Who stories back to life through the written format, because normally with Doctor Who in the classic series, the episodes would air once, especially within 1960s Doctor Who, then that'll be it. You would never see them again. So the only way to relive that story would have been to read them, and I think that that is just the way with Doctor Who, and the way that's changed over time now is you can literally go like that and watch any episode you want, providing that it actually exists on DVD or whatever other format. So now with that, it is a little bit unusual, but at the same time, I kind of feel that these, especially in the way that they've been designed, is just a Doctor Who tradition. It's like a thing that's been passed down throughout the many years. And to be honest, me being the soppy git that I am when it comes to classic series Doctor Who and that retro-y feel, when I've got the opportunity to have some random retro-y books in the collection that look incredibly pretty, I'm going to take it. And then adding to that the fact that this is my own childhood and the actual TV show that I was brought up on, not classic Doctor Who, this is kind of the whole thing repeated all over again, that cycle of that younger fan sort of reliving Doctor Who stories in the novelised format. And for that, I just really like the idea, and I think it's something that we've all knew for years, that the Target novels will eventually return in the new series format. It's just a case of when, and now they're finally here. The brilliant thing with Rose is you can literally read this probably within a day. I read it sort of a little bit on and off because I was doing revision. I actually was using this as a little bit of a treat. You've done 2 hours worth of revision, so go and read a few chapters, and it's just really easy to get into. Unlike some books, it can be a little bit of a burden to start off with because you need to introduce all the characters. However, with this, you're always sort of one foot ahead because you always know what is going to happen, because you've seen the story countless times before. No doubt when the Doctor says run and sort of meets Rose in the lift, she knows, oh, what are they then, students? You know that the exact script of what is going to happen next. However, every so often you get an odd little reference in there that sort of throws you off a little bit and thinks, oh, that's different to the actual TV story, such as a few fun little references in there as well, such as on the original airing of this story, when Rose is shouting Wilson at the very start of the story, and they accidentally aired Graham Norton sort of saying something, I think, into one of the microphones whilst the episode was actually airing. So you had Rose sort of looking about for Wilson, and then all of a sudden Graham Norton's voice came on, and it turns out within this they've canonised that to make it sound like a radio in the background with Graham Norton on in an Irish voice. And I just love the way that they've sort of made that mistake a little bit more canon into the realism of Doctor Who. And at the same time, mentioning Wilson the caretaker, you know that guy at the very start of Rose that was like just a random name that we got at the very start and you never really knew about him? Well, this story gives a whole backdrop to that. Literally, it gives an whole epilogue to like why he exists and what his background is, a prologue even, and it sort of says about all his different struggles throughout life and the way that he joined Henrik's in 1973 and sort of was in the VHS section, and it's just a nice little thing to sort of pad out those characters. And then at the very end of the story as well, we get Wilson's body being found and sort of some people crying when he's sort of risen from the wreckage, and it's all very, very sad, but at the same time, it makes this story so worth it to relive those characters, and especially when it comes to Clive at Finch, which I'm aware I'm talking about Clive before I even talked about the Doctor, but Clive in this story, wow, you feel his character. Honestly, I think that he is sort of the embodiment of the fandom, but at the same time, this story gives a whole new aspect to that because you get used to his character as this person that is very much a family man, however, one of which has probably had a life struggle because his dad died at some point in his life, sort of when he was very early on, so naturally he relates to Rose quite a lot with Pete Tyler dying when she was like 6 months old, so you do sort of feel that his character relates personally to Rose as well, and you just love him straight away because he's not a creep, he's just a guy with this passion. And there is this wonderful scene where we're talking about Clive and his family, and they say something like the most the worst thing that Clive could ever do is get a little bit too passionate about sort of his alien fascination, and he is pretty much that embodiment of a Doctor Who fan, kind of, and saying, oh, all of I think Caroline's friends, being his wife, Caroline's friends have sort of married liars and cheats and basically arseholes, but you've got this guy Clive who is innocent and sort of the only thing that's different about him is he's not macho, he's not like this big massive masculine man, he's just this guy with a passion that's unique, but in the soul, he's sort of a great husband and a lovely father to his kids. So I think that that is absolutely brilliant. And I love that Russel T Davies has managed to develop that. And I actually feel that this is something that he's wanted to do for years. I feel like he's had this idea in his head to do this for years because so many little elements just feel like fan service kind of, but at the same time, really welcoming fan service. The characterization of Rose and the Doctor as well is incredibly mysterious because you get this idea of Rose being this character that is a little bit down in the dumps. She's had a little bit of a rough life, such as Jimmy Stone, which is somebody that we got a throwaway line to within the actual story. He gets a whole backlog within this story and how much of an arsehole he is, pretty much saying how much of a horrible ex he is, how he betrayed her and all that, and you get a little bit more padding to her character, and you feel the story actually relates to her on a personal level, because something that you don't get within actual visuals of a TV show without actually having the effects of a monologue being said over somebody's character is you actually get the thoughts within her head. You get her response to what is happening on the actual screen, such as entering the TARDIS for the first time, the whole idea of the atmosphere being different, the way that she describes it and the way that she sees it, and then the way that the nesting consciousness, sort of her first interaction with aliens is different, and sort of the way that she thinks the Doctor is, the way that originally when she met him in Hendrix, she thought that he was a murderer that wanted to kill everybody, a terrorist that wanted to plant this explosion and kill everybody within the actual shock, but it turns out that after that, he in fact evacuated everybody before to make sure that nobody got hurt. And I just think you get the whole thought processes of this character, and then introducing the Ninth Doctor into that as well. This rather mysterious character who you go into the story already knowing the context, because I think that Russell knows, if you are reading this, you know that he is a Time Lord, you know that he has a TARDIS, you know that he is sort of in his ninth body, you know all these things that Rose does not know, however it's written like you don't know, and I think that you feel throughout the story that you're going to learn new things, and you feel that you're introduced to the Doctor all over again, and it does definitely recreate Doctor Who for the 21st century, and actually it makes it feel almost like it's a series of books, like Game of Thrones or Harry Potter. It feels like originally Doctor Who was in fact a series of books. This is how it started, and the TV show came after, and I just like that because it gives a whole new experience to the TV show itself, as I say, giving that sort of room to breathe for Rose as well, giving a little bit of a backstory to her character, and the band that Mickey's a part of as well, and sort of giving a little bit of characterization to him as well very early on in the series, and the way the Doctor interacts with humans as well. This rather alien, sort of extraterrestrial character that is unusual and lurks in the shadows. And the Autons as well. Little references to their invasion and the way that throughout the story, sort of what was in fact just a few seconds within the actual episode where the Autons started to attack and they were shooting everybody. And you get this whole scene where the Autons invade, you get sort of children Autons being decapitated. There is an element of gruesomeness in this story as well. There's people dying everywhere. Clive gets shot, which, bearing in mind you get the character development early on in this story, Clive's death in this is much more impactful than it was in the actual TV show itself. And then you get Autons being decapitated, this posh woman being decapitated, this woman getting sort of chopped in half by sort of the Auton plank that Mickey's hand has in the early half of the story. It does feel gruesome, and it actually feels like Doctor Who in a little bit more of, not an X-rated format, because that'd be weird, but sort of a more 15 rated format, and kind of a little bit more of what we didn't see within the TV show. We had that unusual rule within Russel T Davies' Doctor Who where we never had blood. This story has blood, which I thought was incredibly, not exciting, but sort of different. It felt weird to have a Russel T Davies story with the actual gruesome elements added in there, but it felt right at the same time. In a way, I would like to give this book to somebody that has virtually never seen Doctor Who before, doesn't know what it's about, and actually see what they think of it, because this is a perfect jumping on point. It's unusual because, to be honest, if I actually met somebody who didn't watch Doctor Who and they wanted to get into Doctor Who, I would always sort of recommend a TV story to them. However, now I've kind of had my mind changed a little bit, and now if I ever come across somebody who actually wants to get into Doctor Who, I might say, look, read this. And I like the fact that it's actually a physical book and something I can actually give to them and say, this is where the adventure started for me back in 2005, because although I started with the 10th Doctor, the series Series 1 still has a nostalgia element in my heart, I think, because that is where the adventure started really truly for Rose. And I liked Rose in this episode as well. I think that this gives a whole new aspect to certain stories because it really makes you think, oh, this is what these characters were really thinking and this is the experience that they had. And to be honest, even some of the worst new series stories, I was going to say Love and Monsters then, because naturally that's a reflex in my mind, but I've been thinking recently, you know what, Love and Monsters isn't that bad. The soundtrack of ELO in it is absolutely wonderful, but I think that stories such as Fear Her and Love and Monsters will probably benefit a lot from a story like this because it allows for each character to have more development, and I could actually imagine Love and Monsters being a really interesting read if it was in the target novelisation format. I would love to see Girl in the Fireplace as well, for a personal reason, because that's my first ever Doctor Who story. However, I would like to see it not written by Stephen Moffat, and I'll get onto that within the Day of the Doctor target novel review, which I've heard a few bad things about already, but yeah, I'll leave that to that review for my own opinion, because I've not actually read it yet. But yeah, it's all in different styles. But I think that Russel T Davies has written this in an absolutely brilliant way. You feel engrossed within the characters, and I think that he just has a great style, and I'd love to see what else he has to write for Doctor Who in the future, to be honest. I'd love to see him maybe do a few more of his adventures. I would arguably like to see him maybe take on The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances, because I think he could do that quite well, although that would probably be Stephen Moffat's job. Maybe even, dare I say, I would like to see him take on The End of Time, because I don't like The End of Time, but I feel that in this format it could benefit quite a lot. But that said, I want the adventure of the Ninth Doctor and Rose to continue. Straight after finishing this, I wanted to go into The End of the World and then The Unquiet Dead. I think that Mark Gatiss would in fact be very good at novelising books, so I think that'll happen at some point. I guarantee you, one of the next books in the next set of 5 will be written by Mark Gatiss, and it'll probably be one of his most infamous stories, probably The Unquiet Dead, actually, maybe, or The Lazarus Experiment, because we've not had a Martha one yet. I think that generally this has opened up a whole new atmosphere of Doctor Who and actually makes you relive the new series, and I highly recommend these to everybody who is a Doctor Who book fan and who's an actual fan of the TV show in general. And if you've not really started to read Doctor Who books, this is the great way to get into it, because you've got a very short story. It's only 200 pages long and it really nicely flows all the way, and once you know it, before the very end, you'll think, oh, that's it, it's done, gone, sorted, and that's it, that's that adventure started. And I think that's just it for Rose, I think. I'll leave the rest up to you to go and find out for yourselves, but overall, a really nice adventure, packed with references, packed with fan service, packed with classic elements in there as well, and a few reflections to classic series Auton stories, as well as some unexpected references to future companions, maybe somebody that said Happy New Year to Rose in The End of Time as well, giving that a little bit more context. as well as some future companions in there as well, and Jodie Whittaker. But overall, for us, really loved it. I highly recommend it. So yeah, get into this line, because it's very, very good. And I guess I'll see you all in another Doctor Who book review at some point in the near future, where I'll probably be reviewing the Christmas Invasion, because I think I'll probably go in chronological order of the new series. So it'll be interesting to see how Jenny T. Colgan novelises the 10th Doctor in a story that in fact he is pretty much absent for the majority of, and see if that changes throughout this story as well, maybe giving these Sycorax a little bit more development. So yeah, that's that. Thanks for watching this review. If you've got any questions about this release, then please do leave them in the description below, and I will see you all in another Doctor Who review at some point in the near future. Bye for now.